call that a class 2 pond. Okay, which man-made or not, if it was on the THP, it wouldn't matter if Mr. Harkin if there was a domestic use associated for it. It would not necessarily matter how it came into existence. If it was a class.
Fish, so I don't think you can call it class 2.
The question is, the question is, the drainage that you're saying should at the very least be classified as a 3. Does it have direct access to the pond? And that doesn't include going underground. Is there a defined channel with evidence of sediment or water going directly into that pond? If there is, then it should be classified a 3. I am not arguing that point. If, however, there is not evidence that that drainage that you're referring to that you believe should be a 3 has direct access to that pond, be it on-site or off-site, being on our property, being on the ownership or not, then it does not meet the definition of a class 3. It's to me it's that straightforward.
We said map it as a 1, not a 3.
Well, let's just before we get there, we have to agree that it's even a classifiable watercourse.
To me, there's definitely no question about that.
But does it meet the definition of a classifiable watercourse per the rules?
Absolutely, yes. I think so.
You believe that it goes, okay, and John, you're saying you cannot find evidence of it, well, even before you went off the property, and I understand you're saying, hey, this is private property, I'm not going there. Your opinion, the stuff that was on the property, you could not see evidence there that it was moving water or sediment. So it very well could move water or sediment down below, but who knows where that starts.
There's no connectivity.
No connectivity,
well,
yes.
Well, it's not, yeah, it's not providing overland flow.
Did you guys are out there, did you walk to this area?
The group of us on the PHI, everyone, went on a road that was above where the pond was.
They walked this road.
Okay.
But we did not go off the road. So we could
Kevin and I walked
we
down
could look down at the pond, but the road.
Okay.
We did not go down there.
Okay.
Heavily vegetated, it's got ferns, it's got grass. I don't even want to belabor, I don't even want to argue at all about whether it's a water course or not.
Again, it doesn't matter if you, but, first of all, as a class 1, it fundamentally does not meet the forest practice rule definition of a class 1 water course. It does not have fish in it any time of year.
We're talking about the protection. We want the protections for
Okay,
it.
and Mr. Harkin corrected me, John, I just want to remind you, but class 1 can also be for a domestic water source.
Yes.
That's the other part of it. So that's what I'm saying. If that pond was a class 1 in terms of a domestic water supply,
yeah,
then, again, let's just see if it can even be classified as a 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, or 3. If that was a domestic water source, then if that draw could definitely be seen, if there was definitely evidence of that draw carrying sediment or water to that pond, I would say then yeah, it has, at the very least, it's a 3. Now it becomes a question of is it a 2? And Kevin, I don't know if this is where you were going with it, but this was my interpretation. You wanted it as a 1, not because the pond contained fish. I assumed you wanted it as a 1 because you were sort of extending the protection measures for the class 1 domestic water supply. If you're extending it for the fish, I don't know. I suppose if
we weren't clear about that, but I thought the plan said that they weren't sure if the pond, or there was something about Mr. Eduardo saying he wasn't using the pond for domestic water or something.
Okay,
then I can tell you for certain he's not using it for domestic water.
But so we definitely were looking at it from a fish perspective.
okay, then the question is, does that pond? So let's see if it's let's for the sake of I can't call it an anadromous. Does it have an outfall?
no.
Okay, so we can't really call it an anadromous, so it doesn't have a de facto 150-foot WILPIS because it doesn't support anadromous fisheries. There's not a restorable watercourse leading up to it, etc. So it's got fish in it. So let's say, okay, it's got fish in it. So now the WILPIS is going to be based on slope. If that pond is more than 150 feet and that's the most extreme, extreme by the most extensive, you know, Wilkes width. If that pond is more than 150 feet from that boundary, well then, you know, it doesn't require, the pond per se does not require protection per the rules. Meaning, let's say the pond was just off the property, it was literally just off the property, then even though the pond is off the property, I would expect the Wilkes around, the part that encroaches into.
Yeah, I think we can get some res. First of all, yeah, if you, it's off the property. Fish and I did not measure it,
Okay.
but Fish and Wildlife, and I don't know how accurate it was, measured from the edge of the road with an optical sighting tool, measured down to the pond and reported it at 18 meters. So that's about 50 feet.
Okay.
So if you put, and I agree, if that deserves some kind of either class 2 or class, or class 2 or class 1 protection, you know, buffer, whichever it is. If that's going to extend up, then that would also extend up to whatever area that is.
Yeah, if it encroaches into the plant.
And if you want to give this class, call this a class 3 up to the road, I don't believe it meets that definition, but it would give it the ELZ, the Equipment Exclusion Zone protection rules, which is fine. But the one thing that we need to consider is, in that case, then this road, you know, may go through the WLPZ of that pond, which is fine.
Okay, well, Kevin, would that be acceptable in terms of calling that little draw a class 3 up to?
He's right. He's right about the will. It will, and I'm aware of that. And I didn't say
Well,
that.
that looks like an existing road. Is that an existing?
So then this is their fire access road.
Okay, so you know, God, John, you know, it requires you to do a small explain and justify, but I don't think that's a big deal.
No big deal, no.
You know, the question. So the question is, and John, I'm presuming you're willing to give it class 3 from the property line to the road.
Yes.
Okay, and then
what that does is it protects it from disturbance from equipment, which is the biggest possible source of disturbance anyway.
Yeah, and so you're allowed to harvest in there per your plan and the rules, but the logs would have to be end-lined or depending on your equipment, maybe just reach out and get it.
I would also agree to that equipment would not operate underneath that existing road.
Okay, well, okay. A lot of that's just
You
gonna,
can line that all the way around.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
You know, that seems reasonable to me, Kevin. However, before I ask John to revise the plan to do that, does that seem reasonable to you?
No, not at all. I don't think it provides adequate enough protection for the pond.
Then I'm not going to ask him to do it.
Okay, I think it's at minimum it's a class 2, and again, we bumped that up to a class 1 because we want the pond to be adequately protected. And to say it's a 3, which provides, again, minimal protection, then you can remove trees out of there and stuff. It's a very steep in there, by the way. It's just not satisfying.
Okay, then I'm not gonna, if John wants to do that unilaterally, that's up to him and Aaron, but if that's not going to, if you feel that's still not even close to good enough, then I'm not gonna ask him to do it. And again, I try to avoid using the term non-concurrence, but I don't think we're gonna avoid it, so that you can add that to your non-concurrence, or that part of your non-concurrence, and I will respond as to why I think.
The offer is to give the minimum protection. We want more than that. And that's what you're bound by the rules. I think you're not. I think the rules actually say you can do more.
Well, you can, but you also have to explain why more is necessary. It's not just yeah, you're absolutely right. There is nothing within the rules that says the minimum is also the maximum.
Right.
I do not disagree with you at all with that.
Again, we're talking about a water course that was not classified, 1. Therefore, it was given no protections at all. 2, we'll give it a 3, even though it's directly feeding a pond. There's pipes in it. There's gravel. I doubt the pond would have water in it if it wasn't flowing. But we won't, you know, and it's just. And then, okay, is it satisfactory to do the minimum? No, it's not satisfactory.
Then, again, then I expect in your non-concurrence you will explain and justify why a class 1 protection is necessary for that pond. Further, you will also explain why that is classified, that should be classified as a 1 per the rules. I'm going to caution you, and you can take this forward as forward. If I were you, I would approach it more from what do the rules say this is. It says it's a class 3, however class 3 protection measures at the minimum class 3 protection measures are not adequate, therefore I feel class 1 type protections are appropriate here, but I'm still going to call it a class 3. So yeah, I'm just going to caution you in terms of the classification. To call it a 1, even though the rules don't say it's a 1, just because you feel that's the protection measures it needs, I just don't know that I would approach it that way. That's all I'm saying.
So it wasn't identified as a water course at all.
Well, and that's, again, that's your prerogative to argue
You're not
that.
addressing that part, you know?
Well, I think John was offering to address it as, at least call it a classified water course per the rules. He did offer that. It's your
Somebody in
opinion.
response say he doesn't think it's a water course? I mean, you can get.
But he just offered here 2 minutes ago to call it a 3. He will call it a 3 and treat it as a 3, including no equipment operations within that zone.
With an expanded equipment zone, with no equipment operations underneath that road, which is an expanded area, which takes care of 90% of any potential sediment problems.
Yeah, again, I think it should be at least a class 2 classification.
Again, yeah, okay, well then, I think we should move on, because I don't think we're going to resolve this here, so, and I'm going to let you continue on with, I mean, I went through all your recommendations, and I have my take on John's responses, meaning whether I thought he agreed, disagreed, or quite frankly, not sure. But I'll let you just go through your remaining issues. I think that would be more
And you did
expeditious.
receive the photo, you have the photos too, right?
Yes, we have the photos, they've been uploaded. I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't wanna go through the photos.
I think the photos show the piping and the gravel, so.
And John, the reason I don't wanna go through the photos, John, is, excuse me, I apologize, Kevin. The reason I don't wanna go through the photos is I'm gonna request, by the way, they are uploaded in color, they are a part of the file now. However, I need some sort of explanation. I mean, I need a photo log.
I can do that.
You know, I mean, just something, I think a photo log saying, you know, where specific, you know, if you can show on a map, here's picture 1, here's picture 2, here's the location of these pictures.
For the record, we got a photo that was before something last evening from John Williams.
Yeah,
So-
and I'm gonna tell John the same thing, I haven't looked at his photos, but I'm just letting you guys know in general, the photos you submitted are part of the file, they've been uploaded in color, so they're available to the public. And John, I haven't looked at yours. Okay, great. And part of the reason I don't want to go through the photos, John, but Kevin, God, I am sorry, that is not a Freudian slip or anything like that. It's just going to be difficult to really look at those without knowing where they're at, and you can walk us through right now. Well, here's what I'm trying to show in this photo, but I think it would be better if you could actually.
Because again, we were getting photos kind of the last hour from Mr. Williams last night, so I wanted to say, here's photos I have.
Oh no,
There's other areas that weren't covered by his photos, and that's why, you're right, there isn't a photo log with them, I think that's.
But that's why I don't want to go, because the other reason right now I can tell you that I have a kind of a group copy of the photos on the table for people to look at, but people have been looking at it, so I have no idea what order they're in now. I mean, in terms of compared to the order you submitted them. So, again, my other thing, in your non-concurrence, you're going to talk about, I assume, pardon me?
You keep mentioning non-concurrence, but you haven't made a decision whether you're going to approve the plan or not.
Oh, that's true. Well, that was a Freudian slip then.
I just want to make sure, sounds like you've made a decision already. Is it necessary to move forward and do anything since you've made your decision?
Yes, it is, because I would like to get, I want to get it on the record that, you know, you had an opportunity to speak your mind. I mean, yes, I made my decision based on my review thus far, but that's on my review, you know, in prepping for this review. Just to let you know, again, since you and I haven't worked together before, as you can imagine, it's not like this is the very first time I looked at the plan. I went through the plan, you know, just, again, for your edification and for a couple other people, when I sit down for second review, I start with the plan as filed. I don't look at returns, because by the time the plan's filed, any return issues have been taken care of. So I look at the plan, I pay particular attention to section 2, because that's the plan of operations, but I do review the entire plan, and then I go through the plan chronologically. I look at the first review questions and the RPF response. I read the PHI reports, and I read the responses. As I go along, I make notes. And I make notes for all the review team agencies in terms of, did you agree, did you disagree, or I'm not sure. Like I sent you an email, please let me know what your issues are if for no other reason, so I can just be aware of what's going on. But part of it is also I've been in the situation where I've looked at a response to a review team recommendation. I thought the RPF agreed, and the agency's going, no, 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 this is not acceptable. And I've had the opposite, where I've thought, oh man, you know, the RPF didn't agree to this, what's going on? It seemed pretty simple. And the agency's going, oh no, we're happy with it. So,
Our very first recommendation is all water courses within the THP boundary shall be properly located on a spelled map. And our contention is they have not been. And this is, I'm trying to give you an example of one that wasn't.
oh yeah, and no, and
Not
here's,
the only one, but it's,
well, here, you know what, I'll go through real quick my notes. Number 1, disagree, believes water courses are accounted for and properly mapped and classified. That was John's response. Number 2, I have I wrote down partial. Map some, will not map all domestic water courses within 1,000 feet. Then I have a little note to myself, and if that domestic water source is upstream, quite frankly, that's not relevant to me, because the sediment's not going to go flow back uphill. Number 3, John called it a skid trail. You say it's a
on
road.
the other side of the ridge, Anthony, okay?
Pardon me?
There's 2 wells on the other side of the ridge top, just on the other side of the ridge top, that's south of the property.
Okay. Anyway, okay, but that just is more my point. Then what's the point of mapping them outside of disclosure if there is absolutely no potential for the timber operations to affect the well that's on the other side of the ridge?
I don't know. How do we know they're not going to affect the wells? Wells are very close to the ridge top. And I think that's where groundwater plays in, and it's actually something I know quite a bit about. So,
Okay, well,
I just think that, again, not shown on the maps, even though the Herzog report talked about it in the 1990s, to me, is, you know.
okay, well, I'm not going to ask John to map everything.
Right
No.
there, they're probably they're very close to the southern property line. So.
Okay, I'm just telling you, it's there's a lot. You're proposing a lot of what ifs, Kevin, and I mean, I suppose it's not totally out of the realm of possibility that a well located on the other side of the ridge can still, nonetheless, be affected by these timber operations. I just don't see it. I don't see how the timber operations, the cutting and removal of trees, is going to affect the well off property on the other side of a ridge, which basically means it's in another watershed.
They're clearing trees all the way to the southern property line. That's what they're going to do in this conversion.
Okay, well,
There's up there, and they're going to take all those trees off. Now, you could sit there and say, well, you don't see how it can be done, but I don't believe you're a hydrogeologist or an engineering geologist licensed or anything. You can make that determination if you want. I'm not willing to do that.
okay, fair enough.
And again, when they're not recognized and even talked about, then it kind of leads to, I don't know if there's going to be impact. It's very unlikely. I mean, it could be very minimal or minor impact, but at least like it to be discussed and talked about.
Fair enough, Kevin. I mean, you said it sounds like I've made my decision already. I've made 95% of it. I still take very seriously this meeting in terms of what it potentially can accomplish, so I don't want to cut you off, is my point. You know, I want to give you a chance to speak, you know, give your opinion, your professional opinion. Obviously, I have mine too, as I pointed out. But
I'm looking at the timber harvest plan being something done, something happened to an off-site well, and even if it's not directly somebody could raise the specter that the operation, whatever was done out there could have caused a problem with their well. And I think I'd be quite remiss, and I'll bring that up at this point, this stage of the game. There's wells around this property, there's wells within the property, there's wells adjacent to the property that could potentially be impacted by what's proposed out there. And it hasn't been evaluated, so it's hard for me as a regulator to say, I feel good about it because it hasn't been discussed.
John, I mean, Kevin, that's your prerogative. If I recommend this for approval and if you decide to non-concur, there is, we've talked about it several times, there is mechanisms for water quality to, I don't think resolve is exactly the word I'm looking for, but there's procedures in place. Like I said, there's non-concurrence, you have your own WDR and your own basin plan, which is enforceable and totally separate from what CAL FIRE does, So, I'm just giving you my opinion as review team chair as to what.
I do appreciate that. I want some, recognition and wells that are on site that aren't talked about, and this raises concern.
Okay, but and we're kind of coming full circle. But I understand. I hear your concerns. However, I'm not going to forward that as part of second review. For number 3, that's you want it to be called a road, an appurtenant road that will not be used as part of timber operations. John disagreed, said no, it is a skid trail. In this case, I'm inclined to go with the RPF. If he tells me it's a skid trail and not a road, and it's not going to be used as a road, I'm inclined to believe him. I do have to say, I did look at the map and.
Do it the other road.
Pardon me?
Previous plan, it was a seasonal road. Now it's a skid trail.
That's okay. Maybe he decided he wanted to use it as he's only going to use it as a skid trail.
They use it as a skid trail maybe is one thing, but that's not clear either because it's only shown on the plan area. It's not shown off site. Now, if he's going to use it off site, he should say he's going to use it.
What?
We might be talking about two different things because on John's map, he's got a skid trail shown that goes down pretty much through the center of the property. I looked at that and thought, well, yeah, that's too steep to be a road, and I sure as heck wouldn't want to have to yard uphill on that thing. And I assume you're yarding downhill.
The 2005 plan in front of you?
No, that I do not.
2005 plan had it as a seasonal road. Now it's shown within the property boundary next to the water course. So
yeah.
I don't know.
Are we looking at the same thing, Kevin? I just want to be sure. John has he shows a skid trail. I mean, he's got a specific existing skid trail with a symbol in the legend, and it pretty much kind of bisects the property.
It travels in a north-south direction.
Generally north-south direction. It virtually bisects the property in a north-south direction.
2005 plan is shown off-site as a seasonal road. I think CAL FIRE actually brought this up in the original review of this THP and talked about it. And I think
the road goes off.
Mr. Williams has to rate this section of the road that's off-site there. He's got where it crosses back onto the property.
Let me respond to that. That you must have an old map, or one of the early.
On the CAL FIRE website, so I'm assuming it's.
Well,
he's looking at your old plan.
Well, I don't know, but the skid trail goes all the way down to that utility access road.
Okay.
And I had originally shown the trail all the way down, even though off property. One of the early requests was that the part of the skid trail off property be removed, which I did.
And you're not going to use it?
No, it was never proposed for use. It was just mapped for disclosure.
Okay. Okay, and so, but now it's not on property, so the quote skid trail may still exist, but you have no intent of using it.
No, we never did.
And also because CAL FIRE said, well, if you're not going to use it, I'm presuming the idea is, this is confusing, just take it out.
Yeah, that was exactly what it was.
Okay.
So it's only going to be used on property.
Okay, so does that make a difference, Kevin? In terms of your concerns?
Because it's right next to the Class 3 water course there, so we don't, if you don't need to use it, great, we support it.
Okay, well, okay. Are you talking about a portion of the skid trail that's on the property or the portion of the skid trail that's off the property?
of that, again, I'm gonna call it seasonal road because that's what it was called in the 2005.
It doesn't, you know, let's clarify something. It doesn't matter what it was called in the 2005 plan, because now it is a 2013 plan.
Well, it doesn't mean because it's a road, it's not a skid trail, but besides
But
that,
for,
I don't care. You can call it tomato soup, but I care.
but it's a road. It's the same road that loops around the seasonal fire. It's an old fire road.
okay, well, this is the way I look at it. You know, I keep going back to the rules and the definition of the rules. John is calling it a skid trail. That's what I expect it to be used at. If I or anybody from CAL FIRE goes out there and it turns out they're even driving pickup trucks on it, then it is now a road or should have been classified, he's in violation. To me, it's that simple. But if he calls it a skid trail and it is used as a skid trail, then the actual, let us say, construction of it at this point in time, I don't think matters.
I think our recommendation was that the off-site portion of that road, skid trail, whatever you want to call it, shall not be used for this plan.
And it sounds like it's been removed. It may have been on the 2005 plan. It sounds like it was on the first iteration of this plan, but at the request of CAL FIRE, it was removed since there was never any intent to use it anyways. So it's now not there. And again, enforceability is a big thing for me because that's the other hat I wear. If I go out there and I find that off-site skid trail is being used for timber operations in any way, again, even them driving the pickup truck because they don't feel like going around, that's a violation.
And let me just say just once, the only reason it was mapped off-site was I did not want to be accused of not mapping something that was there.
Okay, well, so that's number 3. I'm not what I'm really getting at, Kevin, is I'm not going to ask John to upgrade that and change that skid trail and call it a road. Again, and I'm looking at it, and I don't know, when you kind of start getting there towards the northern property line, I don't know how steep that is, but I don't know that I want to go down there in a Jeep, frankly. So, I guess I'm not worried about log trucks using it. Or any, well, actually, John, I don't know that I'd want to skid up that thing.
Well, they may, the reason we have, and you know, the only reason is some of this will logically have to come up, whether you like it or not.
Oh, I'm just saying it looks kind of steep. It's
it does, but it's preferable to building a new skid trail on steep slopes.
Oh, I agree with you. My point is, I'm just looking at that going like, that's going to be a tough little skid.
Yeah, it is, and they're not going to be happy.
Yeah. So okay, hey, I learned something in school. So number 4,
Is there
Kevin.
any other trails mapped out there? Is this the only one?
Yes, that's the only one that's mapped. It is not required generally to map skid trails.
I realize that, I know that. I'm used to that though. Now I'm the Pescadero Creek, they map the skid trails down there.
That's because the rules down the southern sub-district rules require it.
I'm used
Oh,
to
no, I understand. I'm just clarifying for. So number 4, you basically want all the roads outsloped. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Outsloping oftentimes is better than inslope with the ditch. However, you did not discuss whether that was feasible or not. You know, sometimes that's just not feasible. And then also, well, I don't know. I'm just wondering, you know, it's one thing to ask for it, but did you consider feasibility? And did you also consider that these roads eventually will be permanent crowned roads with pavement? Again, my concern is the THP, and will the erosion control measures on these roads be adequate to prevent sediment traveling down and hitting the Napa River? And if the series of in-shot ditches and cross drains, etc., and rolling dips and everything is adequate to do that, then I'm not going to require that they outslope just because that's a nice thing to do. If outsloping is really the only way to effectively do it, and it's feasible, that's a different story.
And I want to point out, I did not refuse to outslope it. We addressed the problem, which is an inside ditch and drainage coming down, and I gave 3 options by which it could be addressed. One of them was putting in ditch relief culverts. One of them is outsloping, and one of them is, since my anticipation is that none of this is going to take place until they are ready to actually do the road construction work. And I'm anticipating that, that the trees are going to be removed and the roads are going to be completely regraded and reshaped in the same season. And so I put in a third one, which was simply to allow the geotechnical consultant to develop and amend an alternative.
Okay, so, I don't know, Kevin, I think, my opinion is you need to think a little bit about, is it feasible, and maybe this wasn't what you were asking for.
I don't think that's a question, whether they want to do it or not.
No, well, no, what I was gonna say, maybe you did not intend to make it sound like every road will be outslope, period. Maybe it was kind of like if feasible, and the best way to approach the subject, yes, we want the roads outslope, but we recognize, we meaning water quality, recognize that it's not always feasible and possible, and in those cases, then of course we expect, you know, other appropriate erosion control structures to be in place and functional.
Yeah, and I think it's more, you're right, it's probably more along the lines of BMPs and stuff, you know, we hate to see, and I'm sure you guys do too, roads that are in slopes and inside ditches that are causing stability problems, like pointed out here.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think it's really important to stay focused on the fact that whatever is done at completion of timber operations, most likely that same year will be completely regraded and reshaped and redesigned and be different. And so I'm really reluctant to require a lot of extra expense in temporary ephemeral drainage work.
Right. And let me pose a question to you then. If the development doesn't happen for whatever reason in the future and all that, we have a bunch of roads out there that are in slopes with inside ditches and stuff. Is that a good thing from a water quality perspective to have?
No, and that's why that is why we have put these different controls in. And by the way, all of the roads except this main road going up, I think it's called Madrone, are outsloped and with rolling dips, and so this is the only road we're talking about. But in the event that the timber operations took place and it did not happen, we have three different alternatives for correcting that. Either ditch relief culverts, outsloping, or something else they propose. But I agree with you, leaving that road in its current condition would not be a good thing, and that is not proposed in this plan.
And I know we're getting into this gray area. We don't want to talk about the future development, but then we do and we don't. We back and forth, you know. But
No, it's tough, and I don't mean it's. And I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want you to know it's not complete. It's not off limits. It's just I just want to make sure we're focused on. We're really looking at the THP. What I'm really concerned that I don't. So I just want to make sure we're focused on the THP. That doesn't mean we can't ignore the subdivision itself. I mean, I do appreciate that.
okay, and I'm really okay with John's recommendation response on this too, because I think our purpose is to get that out there.
Okay, well then, I think that one's kind of like, okay. So for number 5 has to do with the pond, we've discussed that. Number 6 has to be no tree shall be removed from existing landslides unless an independent certified engineering geologist field verifies. We've kind of, I believe we've addressed that in that known existing landslides will not have any harvesting period, with the exception of those areas that are already engineered. And then there's the additional caveat of if a slide is discovered during operations, that also will not have any timber operations. And as we discussed, Kevin, I don't want to put a de facto, I don't know if that's the right word, but I don't want to go the slide plus 25 feet or the slide plus 50 feet. I'm putting the burden on John. Well, I'm putting the burden on LTO and John. I'm putting the burden on the LTO to be able to recognize the slide area, and then I'm putting the burden on John to be able to go out there and either make his own decision in terms of flagging or go, you know, this is beyond me, I don't want to mess around with it. I better call Aaron and make sure it's okay to hire CEG to look at this. So, anyways, I think number 6 is addressed.
Oh, yes, if the board, in accordance with note 45 is completed.
Yeah, well, even if note 45 is not done, there's still that recommendation that no harvesting on existing landslides. And there's gonna be that caveat, and we'll discuss note 45 here at the end. But whether note 45 gets done or not, there's gonna be that recommendation that John and Mr. Harkin have agreed to, that no harvesting on existing landslides, and no harvesting on any slides that, if our slides are discovered at some point between now and when timber operations are complete. And we will get to note 45, I haven't forgotten about that. Number 7 we've discussed. I'm not going to require the RPF to upgrade any of the water courses. Number 8.
That's not, I mean, that's specific to one, you said any of the water, you're talking about that one area.
Oh, well, I'm also talking about, well, I'm being a little bit more kitchen sinkish in that there's a lot of what you say should be water courses, and I'm gonna presume you at least mean a class 3 that are not classified as all. So what I'm saying is I'm satisfied with the current water course classifications as they exist today. And that includes extending that one water course that everybody talked about on the PHI. So when I say upgrading, that means also where John doesn't have a water course and you feel there should be one, I was throwing that in as well. Number 8, I'm wondering if there's some confusion on this. And now I am going to bring up the old plan. Amendment number, and I'm just wondering if what everybody's referring to is amendment number 3. John, I think you might be the best one to answer this question, is in regards to recommendation number 8. Are they the same road?
Whose land watch is operated?
That's you guys.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say that to you guys.
Okay, Doug
I
Nixon.
said it's a former firm.
It's your consultant. It wasn't them.
Was rough in concurrence? No.
Is that a different one?
I think what
Yes.
my interpretation was that this section of road here
Yeah.
is not shown on the 2005.
And I think that has to do, what is
Yes,
that?
this is the road you're talking about. That's this one.
Yeah, so
It's Ponderosa.
Kevin, I have to, now I am gonna bring in the 2005. That road is accounted for as an amendment
That is,
under the
that's
2005
amendment
plan.
number 3. I didn't,
And this is for Christina and John specifically, if you've been looking at the, or following this stuff online. Just so you know, when you look at our plans in general on our FTP site, starting with 2009, in addition to the plan itself, we've started uploading any amendments that come into the plan. Okay. Prior to 2009, we'll have the approved THP online available for public, well, available for whoever wants to look at it, but we don't upload the amendments. So Kevin, number 8, that recommendation is dealing with, it was amendment number 3 on,
Hit on that?
it's amendment number 3 on the 2005 plan.
Doug Nix.
And I can send you a copy of it because it's not available online. Matter of fact, you know what, I'll just do that so you can, but otherwise, so that road exists. It wasn't, and it was shown on the 2005 plan, but it was amended into the 2005 plan, and again, it's not shown, because we don't upload the amendments, that's why you did, if you were looking at this plan online, that's why you didn't see it.
I'm just trying to, what information do I have about it?
Oh, no, it is in fact an existing road, and it was constructed under the 2005 plan, it was just done under an amendment.
Well, send me that amendment.
Pardon me?
Send me the amendment.
Sure, I will do that.
It talks about the crossing there, the 18-inch.
Yes, everything. I will, it's really short, I mean, it'll take me all of 30 seconds to scan it, and I'll send it along to you.
Send it to me.
But the response here doesn't talk about it.
Well, yeah,
we did not have that amendment in our records. We were not working for him at that time, and so I did not have that either.
So, and, yeah, I'll talk to you later. This is something totally separate. It's more of a process thing, and I just want to make sure you guys get what you're supposed to be getting in general, so. Number 9, we've discussed, the no harvest strips. I'm not gonna forward that along, so, and I'm speeding things up in that, we've discussed it. Number 10, now's a good time to come back to number 10, Mr. Harkin. That's basically the, no,
Yeah.
Oh, with regards to note 45?
yeah, whether you're willing to have somebody prepare additional information for the guidance provided in CGS note number 45.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think we are inclined to do so in order to meet the objectives of the board here.
Okay.
And I guess, I don't know if, I guess processing or timing is, we should discuss that now or offline in how that takes place.
We can discuss that now for the benefit of everybody that's here. So what's gonna happen, since you've agreed to do that, we are going to hold second review open. Okay, so second review is not done. Second review, so when we pick up with second review again, and we do have a couple more things to discuss, but when we pick it up again, it'll depend on how quickly you get that information into us. As John knows from experience, traditionally we hold second review on Thursdays, but it doesn't have to be a Thursday.
Okay.
My caveat, because we put a tentative list for the public, the interested public and the other agencies, my caveat is that tentative list has to be available a full 2 business days prior to actually holding the review.
Right.
So that means so using the Thursday as an example, if we have review on Thursday, to get that 2 full business days, meaning Tuesday, Wednesday, I need John's responses in by Monday noon. Okay. So we need those responses in by noon the day before the 2 days kick in.
Got it.
So my point is, if John gets it to me on a Thursday, for example, Friday, Saturday, Friday, Monday, we could potentially hold second review on a Tuesday. So that is flexible.
Understand. Okay.
So that makes sense, Kevin?
Yep.
Okay, so that's gonna be the timing. The sooner you get it in, the sooner we get, and then that 2 days, and the other thing about that 2 days is that gives, the agencies a chance to review it, and specifically it'll give Dave a chance to review it, and it'll give Kevin a chance to review it and digest it and everything. But also just in terms of timing, because we're gonna have a couple other recommendations coming out of this, the half-inch rain event in the unstable area. I will prepare a letter going, okay, we started second review, here's what we
Okay,
agreed
that's
to.
exactly my next
When we
question.
get this information, we'll continue second review. This is gonna be an opportunity for John to go, okay, well, I may as well take care of these revisions while I'm here.
Correct.
So-
those exactly.
And then that takes care of,
Yeah, you'll have those in at the time.
yes.
Okay.
So I think that takes care of, I don't think we need to talk anymore about that, Kevin and Dave. I mean,
No,
Aaron agreed to do it, and now we just have to go from there. So the last one is the last things to discuss before we open up to public comment, because, see, I haven't made a decision yet, because something came up. Is recommendations 11 through 15. I don't know that I would have exactly put it the way, well, no, I take it back. I was thinking of something else. Those recommendations, there's nothing mentioned in them in the PHI report up to that, because there's no explanation and justification as to why water quality feels their need. I can't forward them. So now, this little bit extra time works to everybody's advantage and to disadvantage. If you want to turn in a supplemental PHI report, or additional information, I should say, to explain and justify why you asked for those recommendations, Kevin, that's certainly within your prerogative. I would just ask that you do that a lot sooner than later, because I'll tell you right now, if Mr. Harkin or John on Mr. Harkin's behalf turns in the I'm gonna just call it CGS Note 45, and you call me up and go, wait a second, I need some more time to justify these additional recommendations, I'm afraid I'm gonna have to say no to that. But if you want to, in the interim, provide just, an explanation and justification as to why Water Quality feels these recommendations are necessary, certainly will accept them. We'll accept them, and I will review them, and it'll be forwarded to the other agencies and stuck in the file and the whole 9 yards.
I appreciate that, but I want to, just give me an example why we said some of the things. 13 talks about herbicide use. In the plan it says, approval of herbicide use from the Water Board and the Department of, so we're saying, we don't want you using herbicides there. The response back is that, we'll ask the Department of Pesticide Regulation for, whether, they're the ones that permit the use and stuff. So that, yes, we didn't specifically say on page blah, 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 of the PHP it says this, but there's a reason why we.
The disclosure goes all the way around. It's the responsibility of the plan submitter to, 897B3. That is my favorite rule of all time. It's the responsibility of the plan submitter to provide to the director sufficient information so the director can make a decision. I love that rule. But that also goes for us. We need, even though it doesn't specifically say that in the rule, it goes for us as we have an obligation to provide sufficient information to the plan submitter to tell them why we're asking for something specifically if it's above and beyond the rules. And then that allows the plan submitter to make an informed decision in terms of, yeah, I agree, I buy that, I'll be more than happy to do that. Or to go, no, I disagree, I still don't think that's necessary. So let me be clear, I'm not saying your recommendations are necessarily bad. I'm not going to offer an opinion on, but I'm not saying they're inappropriate or totally out of line or anything like that, but there still needs to be an explanation and justification as to why you asked for it. Okay?
Sure, I understand that.
Okay, so.
Not in a report that they're proposing their use, and we.
Yeah, well, yeah, so like I said, and it's really up to you. If you don't want to address them, then you know my opinion now. I'm not going to forward them because they really weren't addressed on your side.
No, and I appreciate that.
But if you do, then I will certainly consider them.
Yes, I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to elaborate further on why we're making the recommendation.
No, I responded and I put that in the plan.
So before I let John and Christina chime in, if they have any questions or comments, just a real quick synopsis. We're continuing second review pending submittal of a report from a PG, CEG, or CE that is consistent with the guidelines provided in CGS Note 45. We also agree, or I should say John and I agreed anyways, if nobody else, that the plan will be revised to indicate that half an inch or more rain in 24-hour period, operations will shut down pending RPF going, it's okay to operate again. And then also the plan is going to be modified to say that no operations in any known unstable areas, no timber operations period, including harvesting in any unknown stable areas unless those operations are fully engineered. So I'm thinking about that one road point that's basically fully engineered because you got a road there. And then there's also going to be, and if any slide areas are discovered during operations. Understanding that you're going to hire, have somebody go out there again. But again, that's just sort of a, I use the ARC rules for John's reference. There's, we're supposed to do ARC surveys. You guys are familiar with that. Well, there's a rule that specifically talks about what happens if you discover an ARC site during operations that wasn't previously disclosed. It's kind of that intense. Having said all that, any other comments from the review team? All right, John and Christina, you guys have been very, very patient. I don't know how exciting you found this. Any questions or comments before we see you next time? Yes.
I do have a couple of things I'd like to say.
Sure.
One of them is a member of the public. I just want to say how gratified I am to see such a lively exchange and fact-based discussion that, you know, ensures our public interests are watched over and taken care of. So I know it's a hard job.
On behalf of the review team, thank you.
I did have a couple of questions I
Sure.
wanted to ask. I think some of them are going to be very easy. But very early on, it seems like weeks ago, when you were talking about the significant rain event, you said that everything would shut down. And what I wanted to ask was that since there's going to be some construction going on here, maybe in parallel associated with the development, does that mean that just the logging activities shut down, or does everything shut down? Or maybe it isn't even your business what the construction does.
That's a very good question. Mr. Harkin and John are going to have to tread very lightly.
I think it really is dictated on SWIP. At the end of the day, we have some SWIP requirements for stormwater prevention.
Oh, okay.
Pollution prevention.
Well, what I was gonna say, when I say you guys are gonna have to
Construction
tread
stuff
lightly,
dictate.
is if I'm the inspector and I go out there